Welcome back to my Odd Jobs series. This is Odd Jobs number 3, and this is not a project video, it's not a build video, but instead it's a chance for me to kind of reflect on what's been going on with the various odd jobs I've been doing. A lot of those end up being off camera, you know, like stuff I've been doing that just doesn't show up in my main feed of projects. And then I also, in these videos, take just a little bit of time to talk about you know, like my thought processes behind what's been going on the channel and upcoming projects. So just like my other Odd Jobs videos, I'm gonna start this one out with a story of a previous odd job that I had. So the odd job that's been on my mind this time around is this job I had fixing irrigation systems. And at the time, I think I called myself an irrigation tech, which was a desperate plea for importance. I wasn't really an irrigation tech. I was just a dude who dug up broken sprinkler heads and irrigation systems and learned to fix them over the course of the job. And really what I want to talk about is just how important it was to me to learn a pretty basic fundamental set of skills, how an irrigation system works and how to repair it. So I started that job out just basically digging holes. I would identify, or someone else would identify, a break in the system, and I should say this was at a big park district, and I was mainly at one big park in the city park district that had a decrepit old irrigation system that was just always breaking. So I didn't do all my work there, but like 90% of it was at that park, and there was work. Like every day there was something to fix. So anyway, I started out the job just fixing breaks, broken lines. It had the lines were PVC, poly, and then some brass copper stuff, but mainly PVC and poly. So it was new, they were newer lines. It wasn't all just like corroded old steel lines or anything like that. But anyway, I would identify breaks, dig them up, cut out a section of pipe. I learned to glue pipe up, and learn some little subtleties about irrigation repair, such as if you have a break in the line, it will sometimes suck dirt into the system and then clog like all the heads that are downstream from the break. So, you know, things like that. As my time in the job went on, and I got a little more familiarity, I was repairing solenoids. Those are the part of an irrigation system that flip on and off a switch or a circuit. I was making some of those repairs. I was doing some of the main line work. So, you know, the bigger diameter stuff with like really high volume, I was doing some of that work. And nothing too technical. It really wasn't a complicated job. But I learned so much in that job. It was just amazing. You can go into a job like that just kind of knowing that there are sprinkler systems and there must be pipes underground, and that's it. And you leave a job knowing all about how to drain a system, just how to maintain pressure in a system, all the components, and in irrigation, the way that there's so much variation in the components. So you know, like the newer heads, the newer Rainbird heads versus the old stuff, there just is always this kind of obsolescence of materials, and you can see that during irrigation work, where sometimes you're working back in the past in old technology, sometimes you're replacing that stuff, sometimes you are fixing it and leaving it as is, and then sometimes you're working with the newer technology stuff, which is not always better, sometimes it is better, etc. There were some quirky personalities on the job for sure. The guy I worked for was this like eccentric hippie who lived in the mountains, off-grid, and it was for me just like really eye-opening to get to know him and sort of get a sense of what his worldview was, because he was just so far out there from my experience at the time. I also worked with some kind of like long-term irrigation dudes who'd been demoted due to injury and that kind of thing. Like one guy had been in a cave-in. He was down in a hole and it had caved in on him, and because of injury he maintained his same rank, but he wasn't able to do the work that he was doing, so he ended up kind of being like a general laborer. And he was interesting he had stories, and he was an interesting guy to work with, but it was also kind of intense just to know his career trajectory. I also worked with some other guys who were on the crew sort of like me, who weren't going to be there long, and we had some fun, you know, just like digging huge holes, that kind of work that you just find so miserable but somehow find some pleasure in. We also had like volleyball competitions come to town, and we had to work those, and then afterwards we had to repair all the holes in the system from all the spikes that had been put in to anchor all the impromptu nets for the volleyball tournament, and just stuff like that. So it was definitely a job with a lot of weird, quirky things about it, and I've never gone home more muddy every single day than in that job fixing irrigation systems. It was just incredible. But the real takeaway for me was not the quirky, weird stuff. It was just the gift, I guess, of having a job where you just learn so much. After that job, I did go on to do a lot more plumbing and irrigation work, and so I did learn a lot of details that were useful to me and helpful. But more importantly, I think it was just an occasion to learn the nuts and bolts of a trade. I didn't become a specialist in irrigation systems. I never got there. And then I think even more importantly than just the skills that I learned in that job, for me it was valuable just to be able to see a field, and the field being irrigation system repair or irrigation system installation, and just see that field as a thing that you could overlook, totally just ignore, or if you get into it, it's like a really big field. It's almost like a discipline. You go to those parts stores and it's like going to a library when you're looking through all the different heads and fittings and parts and everything. It was eye-opening to realize how much I didn't know about irrigation systems, and how in the time I worked that job I could only learn so much, but enough to get by, enough to get by and get to the point where if I were to stay in the field of irrigation system repair and installation, which I didn't do, I guess there's still hope for me in the future. If I were to stay in that field, I think I could have become, pretty knowledgeable about it, just given a short amount of time as an apprentice, which I guess is what I was. Alright, so that's my odd job story to start out the episode. I want to give you some updates about what's going on. If you have been watching the channel, you saw that I did finish my roof rack build for the Prism bus, and immediately I dropped that video and I started getting some feedback and comments that were really helpful. Someone mentioning, or actually a couple people mentioning, that I might want to go for more heavy duty bolts to hold that baby on, and I did replace out the bolts with some hardened bolts, and I'm a little bit happier with those. A few other people mentioned some fears they had that junk would accumulate under the deck, or maybe that the deck itself would rub against the roof of that bus. I think that might happen, but it's possible to unbolt one side of that deck, jack it up, and clean and paint underneath. Anyway, I got some good feedback on that build. I had fun with it, and it's been a really nice one to put behind me. I also did a few things around the house, like building a new bed for the dogs. Your dogs might sleep on the floor. Ours is a little bit pampered, so I built a bed that kind of goes at the end of our bed, and that way they can sleep down there and stay away from us and still be comfortable and pampered and whatnot. I used my old climbing wall to put it together. I had some plywood from the climbing wall, and it was good to see that go to a new use. I also took some more steel to the steel yard. We've got a steel yard here in town called Max that'll buy your steel by the pound. On the day I went, there was a huge pile of steel, just a mountain that I was throwing my pieces out. I got rid of a couple old bus seats, just some random scraps that I had around, stuff that I thought I might use for welding projects, but it's kind of thin-walled or variable thickness steel. I don't know if you've worked with that before, but it's kind of to weld with. So anyway, I passed it on. Maybe someone will find some use for it, or it'll just get recycled and melted down. I also set up a steam bender for the bus, a steam tube that I was gonna steam wood in and bend some wood. The reason I was doing this is that the Prism bus has, curved roof, and it needs some kind of curved trim up above my walls, and I thought I would try bending some wood for that and just getting it just dialed in perfectly up there and then tack it in place. My steam tube was pretty awesome. I had a kettle burning on one end and steam was popping in that tube. It heated up really well, and my wood was in good shape to be bent. I think I had two problems, two reasons why it didn't work out. Number one, my bend isn't very regular. It does have an arc to it that's nice, but then it also has this little pop in the toward the end of it, so it's tricky to get the wood in there. The other is that I think I was using poplar and you know, I might have been better off with a different type of wood like oak or something. I didn't want to experiment with a lot of different woods because I didn't really want to put oak in there. Everything I've been using has been birch or poplar, kind of like, or pine, like light woods. So I'm gonna go to plan B. The steam tube was awesome, but I'm gonna go to plan B and try to use aluminum, maybe, it might work. Or something more pliable, even like a rubber gasket or something like that. Stay tuned, we'll see. I'll figure out a way to trim those guys up. I've even in the past used like rope and things like that. I don't want to do that with this build because I just don't think it would look quite right, but I'll figure something out. It'll get done. And then as for upcoming projects with the bus, I want to skin some of those windows on the outside of the bus, windows behind cabinets and things like that, the window behind the shower, and I'm going to get some, I think 18 gauge sheet metal and rivet that up on the side of the bus. So that could be tomorrow or the next couple days whenever I get a chance to get over to the steel yard and buy that sheet metal. I'm gonna jump on that project. Also inside the bus, in addition to that little trim problem, I've got just the smallest little half wall I still need to build in the bathroom. I gotta get in there and do that. And tiling once it warms up. It's like 35 degrees right now. It's like really freezing here, and it's not really great ideal weather for working with mastic and grout and that kind of thing. So I'm just waiting for it to warm up to do the tile work. And other than that, the big thing looming with the prison bus project is the paint job on the outside. I've mentioned it before, I've got a ton of cool ideas from people. This dude Fabian even sent me a design, designing a paint job for the outside of the bus, and I appreciate that. That was pretty awesome. I've definitely had some good encouragement for painting the prison bus, and I'm gonna get on it once the weather turns around. All right, that is a wrap for my third Odd Jobs vlog update video. Subscribe to the channel if you don't already. You can find me everywhere online as Metaspencer, and I've also got my new website up. Take a look. It is metaspenceronline.com. It's not the most flashy website, but it kind of gets the job done. If you got suggestions for it or ideas for the design or content or whatever, let me know. The website is definitely a work in progress and something I want to just improve over time. All right, I will see you in the next build video.